Okay, thank you, Scott, for teeing it up. We are going to break out into our various groups. I do see Antonio Lopez, the city councilman from San Fernando, here in the house. Hello, Antonio. Thank you. And he's going to share a story with us later. But today, we're going to move forward to our breakout groups. So, yes, Don, did you have a question? Great. Okay. All right. I am a person who pays attention to the room. So if you move the wrong way and do like this, I'm thinking you're going to raise your hand. Sorry about that. My good friend Bob Keller from Santa Clarita Valley over. He's a realtor, and they have a lot of great things going on in the Santa Clarita Valley when it comes to housing. How about it for those folks? All right, we have several folks from the media that are here. Kevin Smith from the Lang Publications. They write for a number of different local news outlets. We have some folks from the Daily News who will be here later this afternoon, radio stations. We also have a videographer, Mr. Randy Witt Production and his team. So those of you who have a story to tell about a housing need that has not been met, look up Lori, his beautiful bride, or Rafi, his technician, and we will see if we can cue you up. So with that, we're going to break up, and we're going to go to our various breakout groups. Remember, if you are an attendee, you sit around the edges or in the classroom-style seating, try to limit your comments until your question and answer period comes afterwards, okay? All right, let's all break it up.
And I think there needs to time until I just heard
how it is that we competed affordable housing. Get at it, right?
maybe also a question, but clients in front of people and
right, there isn't a way in a non-threatening fashion to say these are the changes you could make. I know I mentioned at that, if you're going to do something like that, you need some kind of affordable financing to help people get through that, right? But that's also the idea of taking a look at a neighborhood and a street and figuring out how you really make improvements. Some ideas about that, but I won't bore you with it now. The need for more government transparency, and I guess maybe what that actually meant was courage. Then I would go, right? So we talked about the support for the granny flats, the accessory units, we talked about that. And then how it is working together, lenders, government, everybody, to figure out the programs that keep people in their homes long term and that are more sensitive in the way we saw in the recession, that we went from anything goes to nothing goes, right? And that we have to have more of a middle way of standards that kind of sustain through different changes in the market, so that we're always rewarding people who have done the right things rather than tightening up where there's actually no danger. I think that's it. Okay.
Who was on the best behavior today? All right, those that were on your best behavior, you can. I saw someone over there raise their hand. He probably was on his best behavior today because it's a leap year, right? All right. Let's just start out. Those who are in the back, if you can start serving yourself and then come back and sit down, and then I'm going to call my friend Sandy Brown up. If she can, Sandy, you want to come up and share the findings from your group? Are you ready for her, Helen? Great. Come on up. How about a hand for Sandy Brown, Westwood Neighborhood Council?
I don't know. Are they going? You are going to put something on? Okay, great. We had an interesting group with the government partners. One of the things that we talked about a lot was collaboration with each other and with government entities and others that can help us. Everybody complained about some of the issues that are really forcing them to do much less than they would otherwise do. And a lot of the reason is that we've all been kind of working in our own little circles and not getting out there and having a real discussion with other people that may be in a way that could help us out as well. There is a misconception out there as to who is homeless, and people seem to fall into the homeless categories very quickly and without anyone really understanding or knowing that something was happening, whether they were losing their job and then all of a sudden just couldn't meet their payments. Homes are overcrowded. In Westwood Village, where I come from, where UCLA sits, we have development that is putting in one building maybe 5 bedrooms, but 10 beds per each bedroom, so that when you go to rent, you don't pay for the place where you're living, you pay for the bed. And there's a lot of sharing done in that situation. There's a lot of legislation that adds to confusion and also to higher fees. We talked a little bit about Measure S. There was a little bit of discussion as to those in support of it and those who are opposed to Measure S. But most of the findings and discussions that we had came about just because people felt that government was in the way, that it was upping the cost, that it was taking more time. Time was money, and by the time you got done trying to put your project together, you were just at a very low place in the process and almost had to bow out. But again, I think there has to be. Is there more coming? Okay. Yes, outreach to electeds. We really felt that people really aren't getting to the electeds who write the legislation and making their voices heard. At the planning department, I know it was mentioned just prior to my speaking, but a lot of these issues are the same issues for every group. And one of them is that you do have to speak out, and you do have to be heard, and you do have to let people know what it is you need and want them to do. Streamlining, of course, goes back to the time and money element. If we could just get laws in place that allow us to not go through all the red tape where we've heard it can take 2.5 years just to put in a 30-unit building. That really does increase your costs, and we'd like to find a way that we could streamline it and get it done much quicker. And education on the issues, taking advantage of available resources, if they knew about the available resources, would be very helpful to some of the people in our group. And to be proactive in developing plans that mitigate or avoid displacement of current tenants. There seems to be a lot of instability out there. And the question I always have considered is, what can we do about it, and how can we help each other to put a firmer, stronger, more dependable process out there for the communities and for the people who are doing the developing of these projects. But all in all, again, it relates back to speaking to each other and getting your information that you need and that you can contribute to out there for others to pick up and work with you. Thank you. Do we have our third house has to be heard from? Thank you, Mel. Here you go.
Thank you, Sandy. How about it for Sandy? Okay, one of our leaders for the other group had to leave, so a city council member, and so I'm going to ask either Helen to come up, and I'm going to ask Elizabeth to take Helen's spot. Boy, it's like, isn't that awesome? How about Helen Waugh, Executive Director of the BizFed Institute? Okay.
And I didn't even drink yet. So I guess at this point, good afternoon. My name is Again, my name is Helen Hua. I'm the executive director with the BizFed Institute, and we're very happy to be co-partnering again with the Southland Regional Association of Realtors. And so I had a unique role. I kind of became the on-the-spot moderator, but also the person taking notes. So what I'll do is go down just our list of 10, and then just read off of that. Because while when a great idea or point came up, I wrote it down while they continue talking. So I don't want to misquote anyone. So we'll just go down the top 10 findings. The first one, just answer the first question of how did we get there? Because there were so many other great ideas on action-oriented tasks that we can do. So I just lumped it all into finding one. So supply not meeting demand, income not growing. And also another issue is just the lingering fear from the housing bubble burst. Those who lost their homes or had to move, they're more trepid in looking or investing in a home. The second, from the second to the 10th findings, these are all action items that the group came up with. The first one is change the angle of the conversation. For example, talk about financing regulations and buying to mitigate barriers between the seller and buyer. The third item is lenders need to ensure proper education and incentivize first-time homeowners more. Third, layer options together, such as combining government and private funding, as well as leveraging underutilized locations. The fourth item, action item, is promote projects that are environmentally, commuter, budget, et cetera, friendly. And I know they were talking about a project nearby. I believe it was like 22,000 units. Someone from the panel can remind me what that project was? Granada Hills New Hall? Oh, Granada Hills is the project that they were mentioning, that they were able to combine all of these to avoid the CEQA requirement. Oh, 5 Point up in New Hall, thank you. So the next finding, actually it's a question about, I think from the first presentation, about the courage of our electeds, to take initiative, even if the community is fearful of more development, that how do we convince our electeds to lead on innovative ideas? So that was the other finding. Next, which I think is a common consensus among all the breakout groups, which is to join and engage with neighborhood councils. And actually, at the housing forum that we worked on also with Southland Regional in November, that was a huge takeaway that we came up with, to build these relationships with the neighborhood councils, with businesses and electeds all together in one room. And so that we can, figure out what the barriers are and work around it and find common ground to develop solutions rather than fighting each other. Next is attending city council and or commission meetings on housing. For example, at the last forum, there was one of our moderators, he was encouraging the audience to go to your City Hall and ask for the housing element and take a look at it and make sure that they're actually doing what the housing element has on there. And then second to last, advocate for better and more effective employment. And lastly, most important thing, be proactive in making your voice heard. So that was our labor partners breakout group, and we hope you enjoy your lunch right now, and then there'll be another afternoon session. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask during lunch. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Okay, if you have gotten your food, you can start eating. You don't have to wait for the rest of us. Okay, I know you're all very good etiquette, right? Okay. All right, our keynote speaker is here, but we're going to give him time to eat. And so what we're going to do now is just take a eat break. Is that okay? Yeah. Take an eat break. So give ourselves about 10 minutes or so to just gather our foods, and then we'll come back up, okay? So if you haven't gotten in line, you may now, do so, okay? Members of the media, can you raise your hand, those of you from the press? Anybody here from the press? Okay. All right, thank you.